Let's take a look at how to set up a client to use a Win server. Basically, you just go to your TCP/IP properties. So network connections, properties of your LAN connection, and properties of your TCP/IP protocol. So in this scenario, we have a statically assigned IP address, .242, and looking at the advanced TCP/IP information, we have a Wins tab. On the Wins tab, you can manually add in the IP address of a Win server. I'm eventually going to set up this server as a Win server. So from the client perspective, I'm going to make this client machine point to itself for wins. That is, it'll register its own records to itself being a Win server. Normally, though, you would specify a different IP address of an actual Win server. So the client is here pointed towards a Win server. lmhosts lookup allows a client to look in the lmhosts file, which is a static text file mapping NetBIOS names to IP addresses. And for NetBIOS setting, normally the default is just that default, which says take the NetBIOS setting from the DHCP server. Basically, you can either enable or disable the use of NetBIOS over TCP/IP. Certainly, if you're using Wins or NetBIOS applications, you'll want to enable NetBIOS over TCP/IP. Theoretically, though, in a pure 2000 or later environment with no reliance on NetBIOS whatsoever, you could disable NetBIOS over TCP/IP. So this brings up a good point that, let's say you have 1,000 clients, normally you're going to use DHCP and a DHCP option and push that out to the clients so that they get the Win server IP address. So let's take a look at where that setting is in DHCP. We'll switch over to our DHCP server. And the DHCP server here, we can set up an option, either a server option or scope option. And options 44 and 46 are for Wins. So 44, we would specify the IP address of a Win server. Or we could add it by name, of course. Option 46 specifies what the node type of the client will be. And here you have the 4 nodes. Now, just a quick recap, B node is broadcast node, meaning the client will not use a Win server. It will only use broadcasting to resolve NetBIOS names to IP addresses. P node is peer-to-peer node, or it will only use Wins. M is that it will broadcast first and then use Wins, and hybrid node means it will first use Wins, and if Wins fails, it will broadcast. That's the default, and that's preferable in that the client, once set in hybrid node, will unicast to the Win server, thereby cutting down on broadcast traffic on the network. So this is where you go in DHCP to set up these options to push out to all your client machines so that they can use Wins. So back to our Wins client here. So we've now registered this client. That is, we've pointed this client to use a particular IP address for Wins. So it'll register its records in Wins. And one final thing is, if we open up the command prompt, we can use the nbt stat